Texas baseball homers through the homestand. Volleyball sets itself into the Final Four. And Texas softball can't get it done. All this and more on College Press Box. Welcome into College Press Box. I'm your host, John Kelley, and we have a packed show for you tonight. This past weekend, number 3 Texas Longhorns swept the Abilene Christian Wildcats in a 3-game series. Over the weekend, the Longhorns amassed a total of 32 runs in this series. Let's take a close look at one of the games, and let's take a look at the highlights from Game 2. In the top of the first, Abilene Christian's Brett Hammett had an RBI single, allowing Grayson Tatro to score. Abilene Christian's up 1-0. We head now to the bottom of the 6th, where Zach Zubia singled through the right side, getting him on base. Then Ivan Melendez singled through the right side, allowing Zach Zubia to round the bases all the way to third. Then Silas Ardoin walked, allowing Douglas Hodo to walk and bring in Zach Zubia for the run. Texas tied, score at 1-1. Bottom of the 7th, Zach Zubia RBI singled up the middle, allowing Trey Faltini to score. Texas are up 2-1. In the top of the 8th, Grayson Tatro doubled to center field, but he rounded the bases to third and was out at third with a nice center field to shortstop to third base out. Now to the bottom of the 8th, Cam Williams RBI doubled to left field, allowing Eric Kennedy to bring in the score. Texas wins it 3-1. We now welcome in Clark Dalton. Clark, always good to have you on the show.
Sorry about that, John. It's good to be here. Just wanted to, agree with you on my excitement in this.
So, Clark, this has been an incredible homestand, winning all of the games in the homestand and some more before that. Why has Texas won 13 games in a row?
Well, John, they're at a really great point in the season right now where they've learned from the beginning of the season where they started 0-3, and really it's been an extension of that because it's not just the 13-game win streak. They're 30-5 since the onset of the season, so it shows you they've just been playing well. It's not against teams like Abilene Christian. It's also teams in their conference in the Big 12. They've been getting sweeps or two-game series victories easily, and it's one of those things where they've really grown up as a team. At the beginning of the season, they were confident, but it was almost at the point where they were overconfident, like they had too much faith in their abilities, and they didn't come out with that precision that was necessary to be a team that consistently wins games. However, they got a little bit embarrassed with those losses against Arkansas and Ole Miss, who are probably the two best teams in the country right now, and they realized, hey, this is the level we need to play at, but just because we lost doesn't mean we can't get there, and we will get there, and they've really build upon that since the beginning of the year, and it just keeps growing. Also, they've been much better offensively. In Game 3 against Abilene Christian, they had 11 runs, and they also had 15 runs at one point in their series against Kansas State. So that strong batting coming on will be crucial for Texas.
Absolutely, Clark. This Texas team has just exploded in this middle part of the season. But you're talking about that Texas offense. One of the key parts of that Texas offense is Mike Antico. Tell me about how has he improved and what he's been doing so far.
Mike Antico has definitely been the biggest surprise of Texas baseball for the season because he really wasn't someone we were talking about as being a key player for the Longhorns this season. You're really focusing on Cam Williams, Trey Faltini, Ty Madden. Those were the three superstars. Antico was actually a transfer from St. John's, and he didn't play in 2020 because the transfer rules were different at the time, and he had to sit out a year. And even then, you look at him, and he's not the biggest guy. He's not the strongest guy. He doesn't have the best arm. He's not the fastest, but he has one quality this Texas team didn't have last year, which is this unyielding desire to win every single game and do whatever it takes to get the job done. And it's kind of funny because we always focus on those players who are 6'1", 6'2" in baseball who have a really great swing, who can throw the lines off the ball, but really guys like Antico who have that little bit of extra heart end up becoming some of the most important players on your team just due to their competitiveness, and they make their teammates better by saying, hey, I'm going to show you how this is done, and I'm going to prove that I belong here, and then that starts to rub off, and I think that's what's happening with this Texas team right now. Antico nearly hit for a cycle. That's only been done twice in Texas baseball history, So if he continues to do that, he's going to be one of the most important players on this team, if not the most important player.
Yeah, Clark, I definitely agree. He's become definitely an important part of this Texas offense. And obviously, we talked about this Texas offense being good. Is this team good enough to go the distance and head all the way up to Omaha?
You know, John, I don't like to make bold proclamations on this show often, but when you look at the rankings, Arkansas, Vanderbilt, Texas, Mississippi State, Texas Tech, Tennessee, Louisville, TCU, East Carolina, Notre Dame, those are all good teams. But it's not like Texas is way behind them. What I'm trying to say is this team can win a national championship. I'll say that again. This team can win the national championship this year. They have the talent level. They're starting to get much more mature, and they really, really want it. And I think they're starting to understand one thing that all championship teams have. I always talk about on the show how teams that win championships first believe they can win championships. And I think Texas is already at this point. But there's also a second element to that where it comes with the preparation, the intensity level you play with. And that's playing every single game like it's an elimination game in the College World Series, whether it's Arkansas, Oklahoma, Texas Tech, whoever it may be, or Abilene Christian. And when you play every single game like that, it increases your precision, it increases your love of the game, and it increases your desire to win. It just means that much more to you. When you lose, it feels weird, like it's a part of you that you just can't live with, like you're almost sick after you lose. And that dedication to winning pushes you further and further. So I think if Texas can really instill that mentality, this team could be in the national championship at one point.
I totally agree with you, Clark, but it will have to wait and see. And hopefully Texas will make it up to Omaha. Speaking of Omaha, when we come back, we'll talk about Texas's volleyball's run in the NCAA tournament. Welcome back into College Press Box. Earlier today, the Texas Longhorns faced off against the Nebraska Cornhuskers and won 3-1. Logan Eggleston and Asia O'Neal were tied for kills at 18, and Eggleston had 5 aces. The Longhorns will advance to the Final Four of the tournament and will play the winner of tonight's matchup between the Wisconsin Badgers and the Florida Gators. Joining me now to talk more about this Texas volleyball team and their run in the tournament is Cecilia Rodriguez. How are you doing, Cecilia?
I'm doing good. Thank you for having me.
No problem. It's always good to have you on. So, Cecilia, when we're talking about this Texas volleyball team, we've seen their incredible victories so far in this tournament. What do you think are the keys to these Texas victories?
Well, the keys to Texas's success have been their arsenal of power hitters who have been nothing but consistent throughout all the matches. On the defensive side, Texas has done a great job of defensive coverage, especially off the block. However, the biggest key to the hard-fought victories against Penn State and Nebraska have been the fast and strategic tempo that Texas has done an awesome job of controlling in vital moments.
Yeah, this Texas team has just provided such a fast tempo. But you mentioned the performance of the players. Who do you think were some of the key players in these matchups for Texas?
So key players have been, of course, Big 12 Player of the Year, Logan Eggleston, Asia O'Neal, Breon Butler, Molly Phillips, and Skylar Fields, who have all racked up tremendous amount of kills in each of the matches. Against Wright State, Eggleston, Phillips, and Butler totaled 26 combined kills. And then Penn State, Eggleston, O'Neal, and Fields totaled 56 combined kills. However, in the game against Nebraska, Eggleston, Fields, and Neal dominated with kills in the double digits, all of them. And I guess that's part of the reason that they pushed their ticket into the Final Four.
Yes, these are definitely all incredible women, a lot of talent. But, you know, some things do need to be improved on this Texas team. What do you think needs to be improved?
Well, Texas has met some tough competition in this tournament so far, especially against Penn State and Nebraska. But the one thing they did struggle with is fundamental errors in all the games. Most of the points they lost were because of service errors and a lack of good ball control on offense. The Nittany Lions and Cornhuskers took advantage of this by shutting down power hitters and getting Texas out of system. If we want to see Texas in the national championship come April 24th, they're going to need to improve these issues going into the national semifinals on Thursday.
I definitely agree, Cecilia. Service errors and errors in general have always been an issue for this Texas team. But in regards to that, thank you so much, Cecilia, for coming on. When we come back, we'll take a look at softball's trip up to Norman. Welcome back in the College Press Box. This past weekend, Texas softball headed up to Norman, Oklahoma to take on the #1 Sooners. Unfortunately, Texas lost all 3 games, which were all 5-inning games. Despite the difficult losses, Janae Jefferson, Shannon Rhodes, and Brianna Cantu all produced runs. Longhorns will move on to face Texas State this week, Wednesday, at home. Joining me now is softball analyst Emme Basnett. Emme, how are you doing?
I am doing really well. I'm really excited to be back on Press Box. It's been a minute, so I'm just happy to talk some softball.
Awesome. Well, let's get into it. So obviously, Texas lost all 3 games in their series against Oklahoma this weekend, which ended their 14-game winning streak. What went wrong for the Horns?
Yeah, and with this win, OU has defeated now Texas 21 consecutive times and swept Texas. Oh, and Texas has not beaten OU since 2014. So this loss stung a little bit for the Horns. Oklahoma is the #1 ranked team for a reason. Their offense was on fire. Texas allowed for too many runs. And something that remained consistent in each game of the series was the amount of crucial fielding errors by the Horns, especially in the last game of the series. There were 2 fielding errors that earned the Sooners 3 runs at the bottom of the second, which is just, you can't give away points like that, especially coming off of 2 game losses. And the OU pitching was just overall so much more consistent than the Horns. There's just a lot this team can work on, but once again, OU has and will continue to be their biggest threat. And so is it surprising that the Horns didn't fare well against them? No, but they need to continue to, I don't know, they just need to continue to work harder as the season progresses.
Yeah, it's always difficult to lose to Oklahoma, especially 20 consecutive times in a row.
Mm-hmm.
But the Horns have an opportunity to turn things around. As I mentioned, they play Texas State at home this weekend. What does Texas need to correct in order to get a victory against the Bobcats?
Right, kind of touching on what their Achilles heel was in the OU game was just these fielding errors. They just cannot give away points. It just gives the other team an advantage and allows for more runs, and they usually occur at crucial parts of the game. I think that's been a theme for this Longhorn team, unfortunately, giving away points at crucial moments. They need to improve their batting average and then get Janae Jefferson going early, get her hitting early, get a rhythm. And then the pitching just needs to be more consistent. Currently, we have sophomore Shea O'Leary. She needs to be able to limit the amount of Texas State hits like she was able to do against Iowa State a few weeks ago in that series. So if they improve on those 3 areas, hopefully they will continue to win games and get back on a streak.
Well, hopefully they follow your advice and hopefully get the win against Texas State. But overall, this Texas team has done really well despite those losses to Oklahoma. They're 31-6, ranking within top 10 this season. Who are some of the players that have kept them in that top 10 spot?
Yeah, this Longhorn team has actually been pretty consistent, especially at the beginning of the season. Like I mentioned before, sophomore Shea O'Leary, she was one of the National Collegiate Players of the Year. She's been on the top 50 watch list and previously named Pitcher of the Year. And she's an all-around just really consistent player, and she's only a sophomore. So there's a lot of growing and a lot of talent on the young end of the spectrum for this team, which is encouraging. Then we got junior Mary Iacopo. She was also a part of that 2020 and 2021 National Collegiate Player of the Year. She was also on that top 50 watch list. And then to kind of round out another standout player, I have junior Janae Jefferson, who I also mentioned, but she is another player that has just been a leader on this team. She was a former first team All-American, and she's also had over 240 hits in her career, which is just shy of breaking the Texas record. So that's really exciting. And we hope that she is able to do that before the season ends.
Definitely. And those are all incredibly talented women. And I look forward to seeing more of their incredible performances Wednesday against Texas State. Emme, thank you so much for coming on. It's always
thank you for having me.
Well, when we come back, we'll take a look at sports around the 40 acres. You won't want to miss it. For the final time tonight, welcome back into College Press Box. Now let's take a look at some of the sports happenings around the 40 acres. This past Thursday, Charlie Collier was selected first by the Dallas Wings in the 2021 WNBA draft. She's the 13th Longhorn ever to be selected in the WNBA draft and the first Longhorn in history to be selected number 1. Collier helped lead the Longhorns to a quarterfinals of the NCAA tournament this year and has been a cornerstone of this team. On Saturday, Austin FC made its regular season debut in Los Angeles with a 2-0 loss to LAFC. Both goals were scored in the second half by Corey Baird and Jose Cifuentes of LAFC. Austin will return to play next Saturday at Colorado. Yesterday, number 2, women's tennis took the regular season Big 12 title with a 7-0 win over TCU. This is their 23rd regular season championship. There were outstanding performances by duos Peyton Stearns and Charlotte Chavez-Bion, and Kylie Collins and Lulu Sun. With the regular season championship, the Longhorns are the number 1 seed in the Big 12 tournament and will face the winner of Thursday's first round matchup between number 8 seed Kansas State and number 9 seed Kansas. Also yesterday, number 7 men's tennis closed the regular season against Texas Tech with a 4-1 victory. There were outstanding performances by Elliot Spizzeri, Evan McDonald, Nevin Armilli, and Siem Woldib. With the win, Texas shares the regular season championship with Baylor and TCU. It also gave Texas the number 1 seed in the Big 12 championship and will face the winner of 4th-seeded Oklahoma State and 5th-seeded Texas Tech. This Saturday, Texas football will play its annual spring orange and white game, which will provide a look at the team under new head coach Steve Sarkisian. Tickets are free and will be available on a first-come, first-served basis. Now let's take a look at this week in Longhorn sports. On Tuesday, baseball will be down in San Marcos against Texas State at 6 p.m., and you can catch that on ESPN+. On Wednesday, softball will be at home against the Bobcats at 6 p.m., and you can catch that on LHN. On Thursday, volleyball will be playing in the NCAA national semifinal game at a time to be determined, but you can catch that on ESPN2. On Friday, softball will be playing at home against Kansas at 6 p.m., and baseball will head up to Stillwater to play Oklahoma State, and that'll be at 7 p.m. You can catch that on ESPNU. On Saturday, softball will again play Kansas at home at 4 p.m., and baseball will continue its series against Oklahoma State at 6 p.m., and you can catch that game on ESPN+. And Sunday, softball at home against Kansas at 12 p.m., and baseball will finish out its homestand, or its away series against Oklahoma State, at 1 p.m., and you can catch that on ESPN+. That's it for tonight. Thank y'all so much for joining us, and thank you to our wonderful panelists and virtual Mass Control. Be sure to catch our sister show, College Crossfire, this Wednesday as part of 24/7 Texas Student Television's week-long fundraiser event, which will be hosting an alumni panel of former Texas Student Television Sports Department alumni. And be sure to catch One of Those Sports on Friday mornings for the best sports debate on the 40 acres. That being said, I'm John Kelley. Have a wonderful evening.